The Super Mario Brothers. Mario, the face of Nintendo himself, and his brother. A lot of people really shit on Luigi, but they're both pretty darn lovable, and we want to build them in Dungeons & Dragons. This would be an insanely hard build if we were trying to cover all of the games that they possibly appeared in, with all of the crazy abilities and trying to work all of that into D&D mechanics. I'm sure we could do it, but it would be one of the most insane multi-classes possible, and it would in no way be a viable playable character. I mean, we have Super Mario RPG, where he would be able to probably cast spells using a giant hammer to smash things, meaning he has to be a martial class that can use heavy weapons. The ability to transform into all sorts of things using Cappy in Super Mario Odyssey, or even going all the way back to using the frog suit or Tanuki suit. We would probably have to do some sort of druid. Or if we went Super Mario Galaxy, we would probably have to go something like a Graviturgy wizard. Meanwhile, Luigi would do, well, not nearly as many things, but with Luigi's Haunted Mansion, he would probably be some sort of ranger with a favorite enemy being the undead. But we want to focus on their core abilities. And in order to do that, we're going to go back to a trusty helper, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. We'll figure out how to copy every single one of the abilities that shows up in Super Smash Bros., but most of it is just pure physical combat. However, let's dive into some of Mario and Luigi's background first, because we need to get into some specifics because this is D&D Builds, where we have an outlet to make all sorts of ridiculous Dungeons & Dragons characters and stop driving the people in our lives insane with them. Most of Mario and his brother's life revolves around being a plumber and saving the women they love. Although, there's something suspicious about that. Mario first went after Daisy in the old school Donkey Kong game, where Donkey Kong was the one who kidnapped his first love. And then, out of nowhere, Princess Peach starts getting captured. I think there's something more sinister going on. I think that maybe if we were going to decide on an alignment for once, it might not be that he was good aligned. I mean, it would be pretty rare for a random plumber to get so close with that of the nobility. No, I think that it's all planned. There's a conspiracy going on. Mario teamed up with Bowser to have this woman kidnapped, just so he could look like the hero when he saves her. Now he gets the exclusive contracts to all of the plumbing in the Mushroom Kingdom. So if you want to play as this character and add a little extra flavor, make sure your character has their own sinister goals hiding beneath the surface. I mean, it's not like you're going to tell anybody about them anyways. You don't exactly talk a lot. But now that we can take off our tinfoil conspiracy hats, let's dive into some specifics.
Here we go!
Both Mario and Luigi are going to have tons of similarities here, and these builds are going to start off the same, but they'll divert a little bit later. First things first, a race. I have to be honest, I was super tempted to take something unique for Mario. He is pretty short compared to everybody around him, and with the rather bulbous plumbing shoes he tends to wear, he could be hiding some massive feet under there. So I was super tempted to take Halfling, if it wasn't for the fact that he has a brother, and that brother is a normal height. I would say that Luigi is adopted, but they have some pretty similar facial characteristics. So with that in mind, we're just gonna take human variant and keep it pretty easy. As for a background, we can just go ahead and grab Guild Artisan. Carpenter is on here, but we could just as easily put Plumber. This gives you the skill proficiencies in Insight and Persuasion, as well as one type of Artisan tools. So of course you're going to take some Plumber's tools. Additionally, you get one language of your choice, but that doesn't matter too much since you don't really talk anyways, other than introducing yourself.
It's me, Mario.
Granted, you could grab Italian since you're an Italian plumber, even though that's not a D&D language, or maybe you just want to grab Japanese since Nintendo is a Japanese company. Although personally, I would grab Dwarvish because then you have a reason for your mustache. You are influenced by all the incredible facial hair that dwarves grow. Additionally, you get one more skill from your race choice, and frankly, you can pick pretty much anything. You could grab Deception if you want to go that really sneaky route with the conspiracy theory I talked about earlier, but I would probably just grab Perception because it's super useful in pretty much any D&D campaign. This background also grants us 15 gold pieces to start, and that's just pretty accurate to the games. And before jumping into any class, let's grab that feat for our variant human. Both Mario and Luigi in pretty much any game have been able to pick up a fire flower, and you can shoot little fire bolts with it. So we're going to grab the Magic Initiate feat, and that way we'll be able to grab Firebolt from either the Sorcerer or Wizard class. Since I don't necessarily think of Mario as a genius, and he is probably going to have some charisma despite not really talking, since he is the face of Nintendo, I would go ahead and choose the Sorcerer spell list for this. That way you can cast using some charisma. And since this feat also gives us a first level spell, we're just going to grab Jump, especially since Mario was initially known as Jumpman. So before we jump into some stats, let's figure out what class we're going to pick. We need somebody that does a lot of running around with the ability to do lots of punching and kicking without actually using a weapon very often at all. And that makes the choice very, very easy. We're gonna grab Monk. Granted, we could have switched it up a little bit, used our feat to grab Fighting Initiate and do the unarmed fighting style, and use that for all of our punching and kicking, but it's such a major portion of how Mario and Luigi do combat that it's kind of just hard to not have a class focused directly on this. And it really helps that monks are so well known for being fast, considering how many speedrunners there are out there for Mario games. Especially Super Mario 64. The last speedrun record I saw was somewhere around 6.5 minutes, and that's just fucking insane. So now that we know we're going to be going monk, let's get into some stats. We're going to dump strength because we don't really need it very much being a monk and doing plenty of unarmed combat. We're going to bump our dexterity to 15, get another +1 from our human variant, take our constitution, put it to 14, although depending on which Mario game we were going with, you could entirely dump it, considering some games he only takes like 2 hits to die, but we want him to actually be a viable, playable character, so we're not going to go that route. We're going to dump our intelligence because we need to use those points elsewhere, and then we're going to bump up our wisdom because that's a primary stat of being a monk. We're going to put it at 15 and then get another +1 from our human variant. Then we have 2 points left over, and we're going to put it into charisma. That way you have the ability to use that firebolt that we got from our human variant feat. At level 1 of monk, you get saving throws in strength and dexterity, and you get 2 skills. We're just going to grab acrobatics and athletics because those are the most straightforward to Mario and Luigi. You have martial arts, so you can finally do plenty of kicking and punching, and you have unarmored defense, because wearing a pair of overalls isn't exactly wearing heavy armor. At level 2, you get Ki, allowing you to do a flurry of blows, which can help with some of the combos and that whole spin attack thing that both Mario and Luigi do in Super Smash Bros. And you get unarmored movement, so that way you can try and pull off a few speed runs. At 3rd level, we get Deflect Missile. This is actually super spot on, because one of the abilities in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is flourishing your cape to help block projectiles. So we can recreate this with Deflect Missiles. Granted, we could try and hunt down a Cloak of Protection and use that instead for Mario, but if you don't want to go hunting for particular items, this is the best way to recreate that ability. You also get a monk subclass at level 3, and there's something that's pretty easy for us to take here: the Way of the 4 Elements. This way we have what is essentially the ability to cast spells while still being a monk. That way you can pretend you're kind of in Avatar: The Last Airbender and do some elemental bending. Let's dive into all of those abilities that we're going to use for this build. As far as Mario, in Smash Brothers, he has a couple elemental type abilities, but the 2 most notable ones is when he uses Flood, the water backpack he has, or his final smash, where he lets out a giant cone of fire. So to recreate Flood blasting water at a very high level of monk, you can use your Ki to cast Cone of Cold. This is pretty great as far as a way to blast people with water, and usually any sort of water damage in D&D is used as cold damage. And when it comes to blasting people with fire in a cone, there's a perfect spell for this, and that's Burning Hands. You can use this right away when you're choosing this subclass, but you can also upcast it later, so that way it really feels more like a final smash. Additionally, you could try to do something like Fireball, just because it's Fireball, everybody loves Fireball. And if you wanted to harness some of that Super Mario 64 with the wing cap, you can also use Ride the Wind, giving you the ability to cast Fly. On the other hand, if you're playing as Luigi, his abilities are more focused on his vacuum. Even his grab, while in older versions of Smash Bros. Was a very simple, I'm just gonna grab somebody, it later got transferred over to using his vacuum to pull them in first. So we can easily grab Rush of the Gale Spirits to cast Gust of Wind. Granted, this is usually used not to pull people in, but to push people away, but the whole point of a throw is to eventually throw them further away anyways, and if you're using your vacuum, that's the best way you can pull it off. Also, his final smash, you can recreate using the elemental ability, Fist of Unbroken Air. This causes bludgeoning damage, and you can push creatures up to 20 feet away from you. And he can also use Ride the Wind to cast Fly as well, even without the wing cap, because you have that whole thing where you kind of charge up and dash head forward into somebody. And I guess that's kind of the best way to rocket yourself. Although you could use the monk ability Step of the Wind to jump a little further and then follow up with an unarmed attack. This is just a slight alternative. At 4th level of monk, you get an ability score improvement. We're just going to bump our dexterity from 16 to 18. And then you also get slow fall, because it seems like most of the time Mario doesn't really take fall damage, except for a few notable occasions.
Mamma mia!
At 5th level, you get extra attack, being able to pull off some combos, and you get Stunning Strike. This isn't as relevant to specific Mario and Luigi abilities, but when you break somebody's shield in Smash, they do get stunned, so we can just play it up there. At 6th level, you get a little bit faster, and you get key-empowered strikes, allowing you to avoid any type of physical resistances. You can also cast a little bit more strongly using your elemental kung fu. At 7th level, you get evasion and stillness of mind, and stillness of mind is going to be super useful for Luigi. As he faces tons of ghosts, he needs to utilize that wisdom we put points into to help avoid fear, but if he is afraid of those ghosts, he needs to overcome it. And Stillness of Mind allows you to use an action to end the effect of being frightened. At 8th level, we get to max out our dexterity to 20 with another ability score improvement, and then at level 9, we get an improvement to our unarmored movement. This will allow you to run across liquid, which doesn't play in too much, but you can also run up vertical surfaces, and we can use this to recreate the ability to wall jump in so many Mario games. At 10th level, you get Purity of Body, which doesn't really play in too much. And then at 11th level, you can cast some better spells, again using that elemental kung fu. At 12th level, we get to bump up our wisdom with another ability score improvement, bringing us from 16 to 18. At 13, we get Tongue of the Sun and Moon, and granted, both Mario and Luigi don't talk a whole lot, but they've still been translated into a hell of a lot of languages, so at least this is still put to use. At 14, we get Diamond Soul, which grants proficiency in all saving throws, and you can re-roll a failed saving throw if you really want to. At 15th level, we get Timeless Body, meaning that you don't really age, and that helps because Mario's been around a hell of a long time, and he still looks just as good as he did in the 80s, even if the voice behind him has gotten a little younger all of a sudden. At 16th level, we get another ability score improvement, and that's going to be able to max out our wisdom and our armor class at 20. At level 17, we're actually going to take our last level in this class. We took it all the way here because that makes it so our unarmed strikes deal a 1d10, and we can finally cast the highest level spells that we are able to with our elemental martial arts, and finally able to use that Cone of Cold to help utilize Flood. So with only 3 levels to spare, we're actually going to jump over to Fighter, because there's a very key ability that pops up in pretty much every Mario game that we need to be able to recreate, because it is too darn important. At first level of Fighter, we get a fighting style and second wind. The fighting style we're going to take is, of course, unarmed fighting. Granted, we can already use martial arts, so this doesn't help too much, but it will help if you're doing any grappling. The other option we have here is taking defense. This would bump our AC to 21 and make us pretty darn hard to hit. Second Wind will allow you to regain some health, just as easy as picking up a couple coins. At second level of fighter, we get Action Surge. Now you can take a whole nother action once per short or long rest. So if you use this, you can actually get a total of 6 attacks if you also use your Flurry of Blows. 2 as your normal action, 2 as your Action Surge, and 2 as your bonus action, allowing you to deal an average of about 66 damage in a single turn. Or if you happen to roll only 10 for all of your martial arts dice, then you'd actually pull off 90 damage in a single turn, which is pretty good. Then at third level, we get to pick a fighter subclass, and we're gonna grab Rune Knight. This will give you proficiency with Smith's tools, which is pretty much as close as you're gonna get to Plumber's tools anyways. And then you can use the abilities Rune Carver and Giant Might. Rune Carver we can kind of pretend is like picking up the various objects throughout the Mario games, but what we really want here is Giant Might. One of the most notable features in all of the Mario games is that both Mario and Luigi pretty frequently grab a mushroom, which makes them grow in size. And Giant Might allows you to imbue yourself with the might of giants. As a bonus action, you can magically gain the following benefit, which lasts for 1 minute. If you are smaller than large, you become large, along with anything that you're wearing. I was trying to figure out a way to just grab Enlarge Reduce, but this felt so much better. This also grants you advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws, and once on each of your turns, one of your attacks with a weapon or unarmed strike can deal an extra 1d6 damage, which means we can use it with our martial arts die. It's a weird way to end, but I think this finally gives us pretty much all of the core abilities of the Super Mario Brothers. If you want to look more into some of this build specifics, I'll be posting the character sheets for them on my Patreon link down below, where you can also join our Discord or even have the opportunity to play D&D with me, just like these patrons here. Look how awesome they are. Aren't they so f***ing cool? And in honor of surpassing my 500 subscriber mark, which I just wanted to celebrate, I gotta call out Nodetian and Alexander Fleming. I sent them both an Amazon gift card just as a quick thank you and celebration. Nodetian is a random subscriber that's been a part of the channel and commented on a bunch of my stuff, and Alexander Fleming was my very first patron, so I just wanted to celebrate. If there's anything you would change in this build, or if there's any builds you want in the future, let me know in the comments down below. That's actually how I wound up with this build in the first place, so thank you to AP for requesting it. If you made it all the way to the end, let me know by hitting that like button, and I'll be here hoping you roll at least 3 nat 20s on your next D&D session. Hopefully you have a level of fun if you get the chance to play these Super Mario D&D builds.